Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar. We'll have a look at the latest flood warnings we do have issued from the Environmental Agency. Don't have any weather warnings issued, but we've got various flood warning issued with more precipitation coming over the next few days and the next week or two. We're likely to see more of those. We'll update where the high risk areas are at the moment. We'll then run through the UKV, have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the course of the next 5 days, as it looks fairly mild, at least the next few days, very unsettled as well. And as we head towards the weekend and next week, it should return more towards average, maybe even below average, especially further northwards, but the very unsettled, rainy, blustery conditions out there does look likely to continue, and that's why there are probably going to be some real big issues with flooding in some regions over the course of the next week or two. We'll then have a look at the GFS, GEM, ECMWF and the ensembles over the course of the next few weeks and see if there is still signs of change towards the middle of the month. The 10-day time frame now is getting towards that 14th of January point where we were expecting over the last few days to be seeing a bit of a pattern change, whether it is cold weather or whether it is just a bit of higher pressure building or a bit more of an amplified jet stream, giving more varied conditions. We have been anticipating a change, but are we still seeing that on the models today? Still a lot of variation around, and at that 10-day time frame we are seeing hints still, but nothing concrete, and that is not good signs for areas that are prone to flooding issues and heavy rainfall, as that means that at least the next week or so we can continue to see these big weather systems moving in. So we'll have a look at all of that in today's video. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. Now to start on the live radar, you can see it is actually a very generally dry day for most of the British Isles compared to at least what we've had the last few days. Yesterday was a complete washout with pretty much widespread light to moderate precipitation with heavy precipitation in places. Of course there were breaks in that precipitation, but it was gloomy and drizzly out there, so not particularly pleasant either way. Now, you can see the weather fronts that brought that heavy precipitation yesterday and overnight are now well into Europe and up towards Scandinavia now. And you can see where winter is. You can see where the cold air is across parts of Scandinavia. Norway and Sweden there seeing significant snowfall. Again, not too unusual for this time of year. It's pretty standard, but we'd expect at least colder air to be drifting further southwards this time of year. We're incredibly mild at the moment, with temperatures for many areas in the south around that 12 or 13 degree mark, a good sort of 5 or 6 degrees above average, and the overnight temperatures are even more ridiculous, with overnight temperatures last night not dropping much below 10 degrees, which is between 5 and 10 degrees higher than average depending on your area in the country. So yeah, really mild conditions. Luckily it is going to be turning a little bit cooler, and that should mean the weather bands are a little bit less intense, less moisture, less milder air. Hopefully should mean the weather fronts are a little bit less intense, less thick cloud around, less drizzly conditions. There will be rain, but hopefully it's a bit more clear cut than this sort of barrage of precipitation we've had recently, but it's going to remain unsettled. There's no two ways about it. It's going to remain very unsettled, and today is a dry day, even though there's still plenty of showers through Wales, Northern England, Northern Ireland and southern Scotland, and even some showers moving through central southern England as well. But where you escape the showers, it's not too bad, and because of those very warm air mass we do at the moment, it's actually feeling quite spring-like out there. Temperatures, as I said, 12-13 degrees, but the sunshine doesn't feel all too bad. So if you have got any outdoor plans, today is a great day to do it, or even perhaps tomorrow looks dry for some areas as well. Now, if I do put on those temperatures, as of around 2 p.m. as I'm recording this, you can see it is incredibly mild, yellow conditions widely. Again, in January, you can normally expect to see some yellow hints in places, especially in the south, but not this widespread yellow spreading all the way to parts of Scotland, only really the highest ground, holding on to sort of average conditions there, or sort of cold conditions really. So yeah, incredibly mild. It is cooling down towards the weekend, but you can see proper winter is hundreds and hundreds of miles away across parts of Scandinavia and well into Eastern Europe and Russia. Real no signs of winter at all across Western Europe at the moment. Even the Alps, many sort of mid to low level Slopes, ski slopes, I've not got a lot of snow at the moment, so yeah, pretty dire conditions out there, but it should cool down more towards average towards the weekend and early next week, but the heavy precipitation is going to remain. Now, I've turned on the flood warnings. These are the current flood alert and flood warnings. We haven't got any severe flood warnings. Of course, it's dry conditions right now, so we don't expect to see any severe flood warnings, but these could increase over the course of the next week or so. You can see there are numerous flood alerts quite widely across England at the moment. Even through eastern and southern, western, northern areas, just widespread, not in any localised area. But you can see the flood warnings are sort of a little bit more centralised down towards the southwest. But I do expect to see more warnings issued around. If you do exit this map, you can see there are 24 flood warnings issued at the moment and 68 flood alerts. And I do think these will increase in numbers over the course of the next few days, the next week. So yeah, do keep an eye on the Environmental Agency website. I'll keep you updated, of course, on here as well. And I do expect there will be yellow Met Office warnings issued for rainfall as well, which are different. They're from the impacts of the weather. This is directly flooding from the surface water and from rivers as well. So these are the big warnings you need to look at if you do have flooding issues. So we'll keep these updated. And we'll just have to see how it does develop. But I am worried there could be some big flooding issues just for the relentless rainfall and the intensity we could see as well. Now, if you go to the UKV and have a look at the precipitation and the temperature over the course of the next 5 days, if we do run through, you can see today it is largely a drier day for many areas. And you can see there are rains still across northern England, Northern Ireland, and parts elsewhere, but most areas are a little bit dry with some sunnier spells breaking through. Weather fronts will try and flirt with the west overnight tonight into tomorrow, but for most areas through tomorrow afternoon, it will be generally dry, especially central and eastern areas, but thicker cloud is moving in, so the sun will be shut off. It will be another very gloomy day, and there are patches of blue there indicating some precipitation is possible, most likely light rain or drizzle, again adding to that gloominess and sort of horrible feel out there. So you can see through sort of Thursday evening that weather front eventually spreads through. A bit of a squall feature potentially along it as well could give some intense precipitation for a time, but it should sweep through in only a few hours. So it could dump quite a bit of rain, but it's not going to be relentless and should clear by the early hours of Friday. More heavier showers in the north, and Friday afternoon we may just hold on to dry conditions, but again, thick cloud, probably some drizzle around, and then through Friday evening, heavy rain arrives around sort of 6 p.m. or so, and widely around 9 to 10 p.m. pushing in, and we see another big batch of heavy precipitation through Saturday. And if you are waking up on Saturday morning through central and eastern areas, it's going to be a pretty horrible early morning start with big precipitation moving through again. And through Saturday afternoon, yes, the main weather front clears, but there's going to be a lot more bands of heavy precipitation moving in the form of heavy, thundery, blustery showers. As we head beyond that, more just heavy showers pushing in. No frontal rainfall here through Saturday or Sunday, just generally very unsettled flow, and that will spare us in a few places where they will avoid these showers, but other areas could just get relentless showers, and it could almost feel like you're under another weather front. So yeah, not looking great. Very few areas are going to be staying sort of more than sort of 12 to 24 hours of dry conditions over the course of the next 5 days. And the big thing with this, the pattern doesn't look likely to change much beyond this 5-day time frame either. As I said, it will be turning cooler with more of a west to northwesterly flow rather than the southwest that we have at the moment. But yeah, the relentless unsettled conditions look likely to prevail, and yeah, a lot of rainfall coming for most. If you look at the temperatures, you can see this afternoon widely sort of at 10 to 12 degrees in the south, maybe even 13 degrees in a few spots. Still cold across Scotland, but again, nothing ridiculously cold, more sort of average this time of year. As we head through Wednesday evening, a little bit cooler tonight, getting into those mid to high single digits rather than low teens as we saw last night. And through Thursday afternoon, still cold across Scotland, but again, that's usual for this time of year. And elsewhere, it's 12, 13 degrees in a few spots, so incredibly mild once again. As we head into Friday, overnight temperatures do drop away from the northwest as cooler air masses come in, but again, those temperatures through Friday are not going to be anything ridiculously cool, still slightly above average with temperatures around that 8 to 10 degree mark, with the average being sort of 6 or 7 this time of year in the far south. So yeah, very, very mild. And as we head into Saturday, Eventually, we see a much cooler weather front move in, and you can see for the north and the west, much more towards average, maybe 5 to 7 degrees, probably still slightly above average, but closer to average. In the south and the east, still 8 to 10 degrees. And as we head into Sunday, you can see a bit more of a fresher feel out there, with temperatures in the day widely sort of 5 to 8 degrees. So really getting towards that sort of average range. So yeah, as I said, it is turning cooler towards the weekend start of next week, but nothing ridiculously cold at this stage. And it's overnight into Monday, you can see perhaps a bit of a frost appearing in central and northern areas, with those temperatures dipping close to freezing. So yes, a bit more of a wintry feel out there as we head into the weekend, but once again, not expecting anything substantial really at all. Now, if we do head over to the GFS and see what that's showing over the course of the next few weeks, we have some very interesting runs from the GFS, some big high pressure runs beyond day 10, some other runs showing perhaps some easterly winds, but today GFS goes for a flat westerly in the longer term, and just showing you the big uncertainty we do have about what will actually happen towards the middle of the month in terms of that pattern, but potential pattern change. So you can see a bit of a southwest at the moment, but as we're towards the weekend, that low runs in, gives us a bit of more of a northwesterly. Now, initially there we see a brief ridge of high pressure towards sort of Monday, Tuesday time, and then another big low moves in, and you can just see the tilt in the isobars are more from that northwesterly direction. Again, not too much of a change in the grand scheme of things, but giving us slightly cooler air masses and the jet stream pushed slightly further southwards. And you can see in the longer term that pattern continues, a bit more application towards the middle of the month, again indicating high pressure is going to take more of a role, but we're not seeing anything too substantial here. And eventually, right towards 384 hours, a huge low pressure system moves in, a big storm system with a very strong northwesterly wind and quite a cold polar maritime air mass coming in from the northwest. Again, you'd think, looking at that that raw image, you think it'd be really cold, but coming across the North Atlantic, it's going to be moderated quite significantly, and it's probably just going to produce a lot of heavy, thundery showers with big contrast between the sea surface temperatures and those colder upper air temperatures. So yeah, generally cooler conditions in the longer term, and we'll see it better reflected on the ensemble members in a minute, and generally remaining very unsettled. Now, if you look at the GMs, yeah, that does compare. Again, the westerly flow at the moment, staying very unsettled. Low pressure sort of parks itself over the top of us towards the weekend, and because it's slower moving, that's why, as we saw in the UKV, it's much more of a showery outlook over the weekend. Still a lot of precipitation around, but not as many big weather systems, or weather fronts, moving in. And it's because that low pressure sort of stalls, so the weather fronts don't move in, or they move through, and we don't see any more because there's no new low pressure systems pushing in. But new low pressure systems arrive for the start of next week, and you can see generally very unsettled conditions. Again, the jet stream pushed slightly further southwards, and it just means that yes, we will see milder sectors at times, but we will generally be on the cooler side of the jet stream, so more towards average, maybe slightly below average at times. You can see the -5 isotherm coming in there for a brief period in around 10 days time, but once again, nothing too out of the ordinary, just generally average, unsettled westerly conditions. Again, I think there could be a pattern change towards the middle of the month, but the GM today not suggesting that at all, and the GFS showing a bit more amplification from that day 10 to day 14 time frame, but not showing anything substantially different, but it was yesterday. So again, a big uncertainty, and we'll just have to see how it does play out. If you look at the ECMWF, see how that does compare. Again, a westerly flow continuing at the moment. That low pressure sort of stalled over the top of us, giving us blustery conditions, but the weather fronts do subside for a couple of days, but a little shower still around for another low tumbles in by sort of Tuesday, Wednesday time, and could see quite a little severe low there developing. Again, those little features will change massively over the course of the next few days, so we'll have to see exactly how that does develop. And right towards day 10, a bit of an application in the jet stream, but very strong low pressure coming out of northeast Canada, so I wouldn't expect this sort of brief northerly flow to last. You know, it might give us a couple of days of colder conditions, frosty, foggy conditions perhaps, fresher feeling, a bit of a wintry feel out there, but I wouldn't expect to see it last all too much. So again, signs of perhaps a bit of a brief break from the westerly conditions, and again with a bit of application here, we could see more northerly little snaps here or there and more varied conditions, but by no means would I be expecting anything anything really different from what we've had at the moment in this sort of the grand scheme. Now, if you do look at the ensemble members, you can see from the latest GFS ensemble members for London, the next sort of few days, next 4 or 5 days, well above average. Then it turns towards average towards the start of next week. So a brief sort of spike there in upper air temperatures that will be associated with the centre of a low pressure system. So a brief milder sector there, but you can see generally we're average to above, maybe slightly below at times over the course of the next few weeks, especially that longer term period beyond the sort of the 12th of January, sort of around that day 10 time frame. We are generally average to below average, but I do think there will be a lot of oscillating up and down. Very unsettled theme as well, especially for London. Areas further westwards and northwards are going to be even more peppered by precipitation, so that's why I do think there will be more flooding issues with a lot of heavy rain coming in. Again, look at the dew points, well above freezing most of the time. Again, some of these ensemble members getting slightly below freezing. So again, not showing too much in terms of cold potential, whether that is sort of frost and fog or any wintriness at all. You need these dew points to get very much close to freezing, if not below freezing. And of course, the 2 metre temperatures widely sort of average to probably above average at times. Again, average this time of year for London, sort of 6 or 7 degree highs and around 2 or 3 degree overnight temperatures. So you can see at times we are average, but very rarely are we below average. And if we are, it might be by a degree or so, nothing substantial. You can see for a number of days, at least for the next few days, we're well above average. And then when that milder sector comes in next week, we'll probably be well above average as well. Now, if you compare it to the ECMWF ensemble members, for the midnight run, again very similar, very mild over the next few days, trending towards average at the start of next week. A little bit of a milder spike there, and then generally around average for the foreseeable future. Big precipitation around, so staying very unsettled. Some cooler runs, but equally some milder runs. So yeah, generally average conditions. Westerly conditions will be slightly cooler at times, will be slightly milder at times, probably favouring more milder at times. And yeah, just this general westerly, miserable, horrible sort of feel. And yeah, at the moment it's not causing too many issues. It's just sort of not particularly pleasant out there, but it could really start to cause an issue over the next few days. This pattern's sort of been locked in really since sort of the Christmas time, and that's coming up to sort of 2 weeks now as we head towards this weekend. And yeah, we could really start to see some issues with rainfall coming up. So hopefully we do see a bit of a pattern change where there is higher pressure taking over. There have been hints from the GFS and some ensemble members, but nothing too concrete at this stage. But yeah, hopefully we see a bit of a pattern change, not only, as I said yesterday, to relief some of the issues we're seeing with rainfall and flooding, but also because it's sort of getting a bit boring watching these westerly charts coming in. It's interesting for a time to see a bit of westerly conditions, but you want a bit of variation. Really, it's getting a little bit boring looking at these flat westerlies every single day and hoping just for a bit of a ridge of higher pressure or something else to come along and knock the jet stream off. Well, we'll have to see what happens. Definitely do think there is potential towards the middle of the second half of January, but we're not seeing too much, at least for the next week or so. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you all stay safe out there. It's going to continue to be miserable and unsettled, and I'll see you again for another video soon.